Y'all ready to be history?
Get started.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
Thanks to TriBooth, the best vocal booth for home or on-the-road voice recording. And Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Introducing Robert Marshall from Source Elements and Someone Audio Post, Chicago. Darren Robbo Robertson from Voodoo Radio Imaging, Sydney. Tech to the VO Stars, George the Tech Whittam from LA. And me, Andrew Peters, voiceover talent and home studio guy.
Line up, learner!
Here we go.
And welcome to another Pro Audio Suite, thanks to TriBooth. Don't forget the code TRIPAP200 to get $200 off your TriBooth. Austrian Audio, making passion heard. And Centrance, the Passport VO. The brand new interface should be out by the end of the year. If you'd like to purchase one, you can go to Centrance website, centrance.com, or the proaudiosuite.com website, and you'll find the link there. Now, we have a special guest joining us today because Robbo and I both received an email from said guest with a really interesting announcement, and that was just last week. Our guest is from Waves, Michael Pearson Adams. How are you, Gomez?
G'day, mate. How are you? It's so funny. It's like I still have to get used to the Gomez thing again.
Yes, you're probably hating it.
Yes, it'll never go away. Never.
It won't.
Apparently it won't go away.
No.
And that's fine.
Stuck with it.
We can get rid of it for you.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Okay. When it said when Andrew, when you say it like that, it's like.
It's funny, when I talk to people about our old Triple M days and people say, who were you working with? And you go, there was Slash, there was Foxy, there was Gomez, there was Tomo, there was blah, blah, blah.
Cranny.
Yeah, Cranny. People look at you and go, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Who are these weird people with strange names?
Yeah. No. It's like it was just a weird time.
It was.
Yeah.
Anyway,
indeed.
So tell us your big announcement, Gomez. What's Waves been up to?
So the one of the biggest things that I've been working on for the last 4 or 5 years is trying to work out from every single angle how to get Waves plugins working inside of the world's most popular streaming software, OBS Studio. And this is something that we finally successfully managed to do, and I was the product manager for getting it all the way through from start to finish. Now OBS Studio, which is kind of used for everything from recording podcasts to vlogs to YouTube stuff to Twitch and streaming as well. You can now use Waves plugins inside of OBS Studio via Studio Rack. So Studio Rack actually has its own version now inside of OBS Studio for Windows, which I cleverly named Waves Studio Rack for OBS just to try and fool people and hide it from people. But it's exactly the same version of Studio Rack as anything that opens in your DAW or your video editor. We just had to create a clever little special shell for it so that OBS could actually see it. And if you take that and you combine it with things like Clarity VX, which is our AI denoiser, and the new one, Clarity VX De-Reverb, which is our clever room deverb and room de-roomer, suddenly every single guest you bring in, if they say I'm going to be in the kitchen on a built-in microphone in my Logitech webcam with no furniture in the room, you're like, yeah, no worries, fine, whatever, I can deal with it. But I also opened it up to third-party plugins as well. So, I mean, we've got a lot of people who are sending me screenshots of them using, like, Arvox for their main vocal, then Clarity VX, and then they'll have, like, an Elgato EQ and, like, a Fab Filter EQ after it. And they can save that as a chain and, knock yourselves out, guys. There's no subscription needed for this or anything.
Well, what was the problem before? Wasn't like OBS couldn't load VST plugins?
OBS could load VST plugins, but you've got to remember Waves has Wave shells that talk to the entire Waves universe. So you've got like over 200 plugins that communicate with 2 or 3 Wave shells.
Wave shell plugin.
Whereas if you open up OBS and you open up filters, until now, all you'd see is Wave shells, and those Wave shells didn't go anywhere.
So this was a particular Waves issue.
Yeah, it was something that we had to fix, but we also had to get OBS to fix as well. So they had to alter some code for us so that we could alter some code and get it working.
How hard was that? How hard was it to work with them?
It wasn't hard.
It was open source, right?
Yeah, it's open source, but it took time because it depends which coders happen to be working on it at the time and who's doing what. So there was a lot of back and forth, but they're actually pretty awesome to work with.
That's good.
Streamlabs we're still working on because Streamlabs has so much more complex code that makes everything look nice on top of the normal OBS.
It's a wrapper for OBS, right?
It's a very complex wrapper. It's a wrapper that Logitech spent $89 million buying. So they sold the Streamlabs people sold to Logitech for $89 million. So it's it was a worth it wrapper, really, guys.
Wow.
That's an expensive bit of wrapping.
It's an expensive bit of wrapping, but
What about something like vMix? Does Waves work with vMix?
Yes, it does. Depending on which version, sometimes you see a Wave shell and then you double click it and you see the plugins, and sometimes you just see the plugins. But the vMix people are just down the road from me on the Gold Coast, so I'm actually going to go and see them week after next and sit down and have coffee with them and talk about getting it updated so that it's perfect.
Talk about a Mac version? Is that what you're going to talk about?
Because that's vMix is a big one, isn't it? Like a lot of really pro productions will use vMix. I think
we used it on VOBS for a few years until the pandemic hit, and we went totally virtual after that. And so we just didn't need an in-studio switcher, But it was way more stable than Wirecast, which we'd been using for years before that.
I'm going to be honest. It's like I used Wirecast for the first 3 live stream events that I did at Waves at the beginning of the pandemic. And then my anxiety and stress levels decided that I'd be much smarter to use something that didn't hate me.
And you found something?
Well, I went to OBS. But on average, about 2 million people use OBS a day at any given time. So it's the highest used live streaming and recording piece of software in the world.
Yeah, I use it as a virtual webcam driver mostly.
Yeah, well, me too.
Or as a screen recorder. I mean, just if you're doing stuff like, hey, I just need to make an instructional video, and 2 people can sit down with OBS and knock it out, and it's like doing your edit and your if you get your stuff down, it's like it just takes away the editing process or can streamline it a lot.
And then if you take that further, it's like because of the way that you've got scene collections in OBS, I have scene collection that I set up specifically for recording tutorials in Waves that has my VO and the settings and the plugins and the chain and Studio Rack on my VO, everything's set up. And then what I do is I virtual cable out so that the output audio of OBS and OBS virtual camera both get recorded at the same time or both get used at the same time if I'm doing a masterclass. So that way I've got all my plugins. I don't have to worry about putting plugins on a DAW. I just basically virtual camera and virtual audio myself directly everything out of OBS. And I have clean audio, clean visuals. I've got the Stream Deck. I can move it around and nobody knows what I'm doing.
So you can virtual camera every recipient in OBS out to a separate stream, you're saying?
I use OBS. I use OBS Ninja for that. But what I do is I take the output of OBS audio as well as my virtual cam. So that way what I can do is I can go, okay, right. So I have all of my audio set up in OBS and my visuals set up in OBS, so I don't have to worry about trying to put processing through anything like voice meter or anything complicated like that. It really helps. It helps a lot.
Does OBS speak Huey?
No.
Or even MIDI for that matter?
I believe there's a MIDI plugin for it. I don't know how legit or shady it is. I haven't tried it, but I do. I know there's one. I know somebody made one at some point. Yeah, most of the people most people who use controllers with OBS either hotkey to a macro, because you can hotkey everything in OBS. And, you just go to Etsy or eBay and buy a $20 macro keyboard. And people have those if they don't want to buy a Stream Deck.
Right, I was just trying to think of a fader.
Right.
What device can you get that's a fader? And there might be some knobs, like some continuous controllers, I guess. But
yeah, I've got the Stream Deck that's got knobs on on it, so I can assign those to my faders if I want to.
Korg has like the little nano fader thing that they make.
Oh my God, I have another thing that I have in storage in a box in Florida that says move to Australia and won't ever get to Australia. Right next to my Blackmagic ATEM Mini.
Yeah.
So
I know it's once you have OBS and you know how to wire it and you know how to program it. It's so powerful.
It's a Swiss Army penknife.
It's Swiss Army. It's stable.
And you get the little extra app for your phone that you can use as like a scene switcher. So you don't have to like, if you're working with one screen, you can still record without people seeing you flip to OBS or having to cut that spot out when you.
Yeah. And then you have the other beautiful thing is you can actually open up 2 versions of OBS if you need to. So on a Mac or a PC, you can run in different instantiations of it. And it'll say, you've already got it running. Do you want to open it again? But I've got 2 or 3 scenarios where I've had 2 scenarios of OBS running, both with their own scene collection and both sending off to different places that were recording different streams and different people so that I had multi-streams, kind of like a multi-deck video recorder.
Okay, now you're just showing off, Gomez. Okay.
But adding plugins to this and the fact that I can, having a Studio Rack inside of OBS means that I can then take those guest mics or my mic or whatever settings on every channel and then move them to DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere or wherever I want and continue my production. And that's the part that I had us all working hard on to fix so that, workflows like that could happen. Because that's the thing, content creators work everywhere. So having Studio Rack and the fact it works everywhere and it's free, even if you've only buy one Waves plugin and you've got a bunch of other people's plugins, knock yourself out. Use them in it as well.
So an upgrade to this is that Studio Rack now will host any plugin, not just Waves.
Yeah, Studio Rack. Yeah. There's a little. Has
that always been that way?
Nope.
Or was there a time when Studio Rack only did Waves plugins?
There was for 10 years.
Okay.
Because it was, but nowadays, no. There's a little scan VST3 folder, and it'll scan all third-party VSTs.
So is that like the Audition thing when you've got to scan for your other ones?
Yeah.
Gomez, take the time machine back for a second. Waves Rack, or whatever it was called at the time, running on a Mac 7100 with an audio media card, real-time processor.
Wow. Yeah. I had
you remember that?
I still have an audio media. I still have an Audio Media 2 card.
I probably have an Audio Media 2 card around, I bet.
Yeah, that was running inside of a beige G3.
Beige. That's very you.
Yeah. Well, it was the only color they made them in.
Well, no, it had to have been an Audio Media 3 card because there was never a G3 that was...
It was a beige G3, and I had a SCSI drive that I was very, very happy with. That I would, and I would literally pick up this monster of a G3 plus the SCSI drive and cart it from Paran on the trolley, on the tram to MCM and drag it up the stairs.
Don't forget your zip disk drive.
Oh my God.
God, remember that? Wow.
It was a Quest 44 meg.
And that was the same time that I was using Mesa for backup archiving.
Mesa. Oh, God.
Was that the tape?
It was tape.
Yeah. It was tape.
Yeah,
Mezzo, right? Mesa was it called? Or
Mezzo, yeah.
We would call it Mezzo, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Mezzo. Yeah, God, that was great and the worst thing on earth all at the same time.
I think each tape held 5 gigabytes or something.
Because they were one of the first ever fully remote audio companies, as in that they had people everywhere, but there was no office. So, you'd be in a studio at MCM trying to find somebody that could help you at like 3:00 in the morning, and there wasn't anybody. But I did love the fact that was the first time you could drag a Pro Tools reel and just drag it onto the icon, and it would find everything.
You can't even do that anymore because Pro Tools encrypted the file format, so now you can't make a.
You know why Abbott's for
archiver.
sale again now, don't you? They're for sale because of Mezzo, basically. I'm sure it's like people, the angry people who want Mezzo backups are now forced Abbott to sell again. I'm joking.
Here's a question out of left field, but I thought I'd just chuck it in there anyway because we do talk about this company quite a lot. And they're very progressive in things they do. Has Waves ever had a conversation with Rode?
Maybe.
Enough said.
Off the record.
Because you think about it, it seems like a kind of a logical place to have a chat,
To land.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So what I will say is, if you look at the Rodecaster Pro 2, which is an amazing piece of gear. Well done, fellow Australians, for doing that. If you look at the DSP in it, you'll find that there's another plugin, an audio manufacturer named there that isn't Waves already.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, they bought the brand.
Yeah, Aphex.
Well, Aphex.
So obviously they're going to prioritize what they already own. But no, we've had a couple of chats. I can't tell you where they went, but there have been a couple of conversations.
Well, let me guess, and you don't need to confirm or deny, but I, as an audio engineer, I have one of the aforesaid pieces of hardware, and I think about having clarity and your reverb and all that stuff inside the Rodecaster. I mean, Jesus, imagine that.
Yeah.
It would be beyond amazing. To put them on something that would actually fit inside the hardware would be interesting, because there's a reason that we created a new neural network in Clarity VX called the Eco. Because if you haven't seen it yet, by the way, so next time you update your Clarity VX, you'll see that there's Network 1, Neural Network 2, and then there's Broad 1 Eco, which takes up less CPU. Because the amazing magical things that plugin does, it can, if you've got a few instantiations of it, it can be a bit taxing. So the Eco one does as much as it can and tries to keep it as transparent as possible, but not use half as much DSP.
Well, I was recently, light was shed on an area of audio processing I wasn't aware of until recently, and that have we ever talked to anybody on the show here about GPU based audio?
Yeah, we had the guy on.
You guys discussed it with me about 2 years ago. So I'm glad you remember these discussions. You know.
Yeah. Well. I am not an archivist.
You're very special to me too, mate.
I'm a conversationalist, not an archivist. I suck at remembering things.
Yeah.
But NVIDIA's got their thing called NVIDIA Broadcast.
I'm talking to you through it right now.
Yeah, and it's great that you don't have to use their GPU cards to do a lot of what that is doing now, because now it's natively can be running on your Mac with Clarity.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a PC based, clearly, obviously.
The interesting thing about it is, though, I mean, the whole CPU GPU thing. There's an article which I can send you guys, and you can post up if you want. Very interesting about a guy who was demoing at NAB, I believe. He did a whole demo and presentation on how he's running his reverbs on his GPU rather than his CPU, and the usage went down like 80%. I mean, we're all going to have to, as software companies in the audio field, investigate that more, and we already are. But we also have to make sure that we're not penalizing some while we're rewarding others for having the foresight to either upgrade their GPU or have a better one. There has to be across the field amount of performance that works. So CPUs are kind of like the standard playing field. GPUs seem to be something that is more like a Harley Davidson in some ways. Every gamer, every streamer, every video person understands the benefits of why a larger or a better performing GPU, or one with more VRAM and other RAM and everything else, is beneficial. But there's still a large part of the audio community who haven't had that on their radar yet. So to give another analogy, it's like, Robbo and Andrew specifically will get this one. Sorry, the rest of you. But, working in radio, you'd walk around the radio station all day and you'd hear songs, and within the first day of a song being added to the A-list, you'd be sick of it. It would take another month before the average user got sick of a song, because they're only hearing it like when they get in the car or in the back in the office, etc. Whereas we're on top of it, we're aware constantly of what's going on. So, the five of us, the five of us? Yeah, five on this call. We're pretty much the 1% that keeps an eye on this stuff, whereas the average user doesn't check their newsletter every day to see what's new. They don't check on the specials every day to see what they can get and they don't see what the new technology is. It doesn't mean they don't care. It just means they have other things in life going on. So all this comes back to say, I think it's going to be a while before we see GPU coming in as like a standard in the audio world.
I just like tools that are artist friendly. In fact, like we at Georgia Tech, we're like kind of doing this brand shift where we're talking about our services being, for performers, right? Not just voiceover actors. And I was on a show the other day called Office Hours Global, which is it's literally a daily live stream where they talk about media production. And one of the fellows that came on the show to promote a product said, even if you're an IT guy, when you're performing art, you don't want to think about IT.
No.
So, it's like, it doesn't matter how smart you are or how technical you are or how adept you are at juggling many tools and technologies. When you're doing the show, whether it's talking on a podcast or performing live on stage, you're in a performance and you don't want stuff to get in the way and you don't want too many things to control and think about because it will detract from your performance. So that's like a really important thing.
That's pretty much where I live in the product management and development world. Is one of the things that's really, really important to me, especially when it came to how we implemented Waves inside anything for content creators or streamers, or to be fair, anybody. I mean, like voiceovers could use the new Studio Rack inside of OBS or whoever. But one of the most important things was I wanted to make sure that it was completely fluid across any platform, because one of the biggest pet hates I have is exactly what you just said, which is if you're worrying about, will this work? Will this crash? Will it open? Then you're not thinking about being the best you. You're thinking about the technology that you paid for that should bloody work in the first place. So if, however, you have a completely fluid experience where you open it, you select your preset, you tweak just a bit if you need to, and then you open it again after the show in another program and it's just there, that's what I call working, because then you don't even have to consider it. You might think about it afterwards and go, oh yeah, I guess it was there. Of course it was. It just worked. And I just looked at the camera with my hands to make just worked. And then I realized I'm not on camera.
Yeah. But it's true, especially coming from someone like me I'm not technical at all. I can get through the basics just to make things, record stuff and edit stuff and send it away. But the last thing I'm ever thinking about when I'm doing a session is, well, if I am thinking about what's happening out here with levels, am I clipping? Is there something, we're dropping out or whatever? Then I'm not actually doing my job properly because I'm distracted.
Yeah.
And this takes client education, because the client thinks that because you have the technology, you should be able to do all those things. Because you have the technology.
George, when you say the client, do you mean us, like the software companies, or?
No, I mean the client. Sorry, the client meaning the one hiring
on the end of the line,
actor, the talent. When the expectation of the talent is to juggle, or I like to call it spinning plates. When the expectation of the talent is to spin these plates and still perform at the level that the talent is really expected to perform, they have to understand, and it really requires that there be some education.
The really top talent hire their own engineer. I've seen a few talent that literally are like, I have a session, I don't want to worry about it, I'm going to hire an engineer for it.
We offer that now at Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
It's a new service called Virtual Producers.
I saw a brief come through for my daughter Somerset the other day. It was for an animation, for a game character. And when she went through the character and all that kind of stuff and then saw what the budget was going to be.
Oh, you were telling me about this.
I can understand why Americans can afford to hire an engineer, because...
I nearly fell off the chair.
I mean, the top rate, it was anywhere between, I think, the lowest rate was like 80,000 US. But for the main character, it was 990,000 US.
Dude, I want to be your daughter.
It can be arranged.
I thought you were AP's love child.
But that's the difference. You don't see things like that in Australia.
You don't see that anywhere, at all. I was going to say.
Well, we don't know what we're going to see here in the U.S. pretty soon here either with the strike going on.
Well, you've got the strikes, but also because of things like the advent of I was going to say Netflix, but the advent of every single man and his dog going, I'm going to start a streaming service. The demand for content these days and fresh content is just ridiculous, and. Because of that, there is this huge extra demand that's pushing both voiceovers and obviously, Andrew, you would know because it's in your domain. There's also this annoying push for artificial intelligence voiceovers.
Yes.
So one of the biggest tells that I find about an AI voice is that it sounds like there's literally no dynamics or feeling in it at all. So I don't think you're ever going to be replaced.
He has been.
Yeah, well, not yet. Not yet. It's not official, but the word is they are talking.
The word
is
researching
it.
I mean, Andrew, you could be the first.
Could be the first,
and that is something to strive for.
Yeah, that'd be a nice banner to put up. The first guy to be replaced by a robot. Yeah.
Assuming as this first, I'm not going to name the head of a radio network that said this to me back in 1995, but I got called into a conference room and got offered a job at a competitor's radio network. And this guy from the other end of the table looks at me and says, okay, Gomez, I'm willing to offer you this. And I went, well, that's 20 grand less than I'm currently being paid. And he said, and I quote, look, wages in radio are going down, competition is up, be ahead of the pack.
Good advice, Gomez. Good advice.
I've got a horrible feeling I know who that was, but anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got a feeling I know who that was too, but anyway, there you go.
Can I hire that guy?
Yeah, certainly.
What a genius.
He's down in if that helps.
Oh, okay.
His first name?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I'll cut that out. We'll get in trouble.
Yes, we will.
Just a weird conversation.
I had a question. It's gone out
know.
of my head now. Oh, shit. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I always equate all this, like the economy or any sort of kind of economy, whether it's a financial economy or it's a whatever, an industry economy, as in staff movement and stuff like that. I always equate it to the beach because every month or whatever you're down the beach, you notice there's about 2 feet of sand has disappeared and has moved to another beach. And then months and months later, it will come back again. And that's kind of what happens. Everything sort of drains out and everyone's panicking. And then all of a sudden it's back again and, business as usual.
You mean a bit like we need to go, we need to syndicate, we need everything networked. And 2 years later, you know what would be a really good idea is if everything is local, let's make radio local.
Mm-hmm.
2 years later, we need to make everything network.
Yeah.
We need to make everything network. You know what would be a really good idea? Local radio. Wow, what a great idea.
Well, and all kinds of industries do that. It's like ad agencies making in-house studios and then, no, we're going to use all third-party vendors. Oh, let's go back to in-house. We're spending too much money. And then,
But, the most important thing here is an AI voice can't choose to use Wave Studio Rack with Clarity VX on their voice.
There you go.
A human one can make that great decision in their life for the betterment of their health and their prosperity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I wonder if you can make an AI voice that's pre-compressed.
that speaks compressed.
Yeah, that speaks compressed.
God,
it speaks compressed.
I can't do it.
Yeah. There you go. Hey, listen, I've got a question for you, and this is completely off the subject of what we're talking about, but it's something I've
There's a subject?
thought about. Well, there's not, and that's basically this show. But what? Just out of interest, what's Wave's biggest selling product?
I can't tell you the biggest selling one, but I'll tell you a couple of them. Studio Rack is the most downloaded.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah, it is. Because it doesn't just work with Waves. It works with any VST3.
Yep.
And you can say chain. So the Sheps Omni channel is ridiculously popular.
Is it really?
Yeah, very popular plugin. One of the cool things about Shep's Omnichannel, apart from the fact that my mate Andrew Sheps conceived it on a piece of paper and then we helped him, but everything in that plugin is his ideas.
Right.
We basically helped him create his perfect plugin, and he uses it on every record. As you go through the modules in that plugin, unless you touch one of them, it's not on, which means it's not using any CPU or DSP. It's just not doing anything. So you have this virtually zero latency plugin with a full frequency de-esser and the ability to monitor in mono, side chain, mid-side, stereo, and the ability to go from 4 different kinds of compressors, 2 limiters, great EQ. I mean, it's just an amazing channel strip. And then you can add another plugin inside of that plugin.
Well, what? So you can stick like a reverb in there or something? Is that what you're saying?
It can host what plugins?
Inside of Shep's Omnichannel, there's a couple of different options. First of all, say, for example, if you wanted 2 EQs in the Shep's Omnichannel, you've got 2 options. You can either open the module in the plugin and go, okay, right, I'm going to add another Shep's Omnichannel EQ module so that you've got 2 identical EQ modules that are working either on different frequency sets or one on one side of dynamics and the other on the other, or on side of the pre or the other. Or you can literally open up another plugin. So you could say, okay, right, I need another compressor.
So you could stick like an SSL EQ or something, or a compressor or something.
Absolutely.
Oh,
yes.
Wow. Fucking hell. Did you know this, George?
Yeah, I did.
Is it only Waves plugins that you can drop in there, or is it the whole plugin list?
No, it's only on Shep's Omnichannel, or you could do that in the CLA Mix Hub, or you could do it in Shep's Omni, and you can open up any Waves plugin.
Yeah, I love Shep's Omnichannel.
Okay, so now I'm going to blow your mind. Can you open up Shep's? Can you put in a studio rack and then throw in any other VST?
Actually,
Gomez doesn't know.
No, I've tried it. It didn't. It showed the one GUI. It didn't show the second GUI. So it was. But where it gets really is, I'll tell you one thing you can do is you can open up a Shep's Omnichannel, go into the module to add another plugin, add in another Shep's Omnichannel, and then inside that add another. It's like you can get really
Inception.
It really is, but there comes a point where your computer just gets sucked into a black hole and you end up looking at an empty desk. So that's on you.
But George, I was going to say to George that in voiceover world, that Shep's Omnichannel, I mean, I know you've got to buy it, but surely that would be really powerful for people with home studios, right?
I will say that ever since Gomez, MPA as we call him, came on our webinars, we've had quite a few people start using Waves plugins.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And Shep's is one of them. And I've had people say, can you make me a stack? I have the following plugins. And, it'll be Clarity, Shep's, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll go, yeah, no problem.
I appreciate it, man. The Shep's Omnichannel is super useful on I'm finding it super useful on live streams as well, because it means that I can have something there and on the guest channel where it pretty much sits. But if somebody is way too loud or way too dynamic, then I've got an MB2 that I've got bypass sitting in the extra module in Shep's Omnichannel, and that basically I just turn it on and it just controls the higher dynamics in the mix and just levels them out a bit.
Yep.
Can you run the Dugan mixer?
No, as a plug-in, if you've got it, then technically, yes. I haven't tried it in OBS or inside of Shep's Omni.
Well, there you go. I've learned something new today.
What did you learn?
I can't remember.
There you go. Yeah, no, I wasn't asking to find out. I was asking if you actually remembered.
Yeah, no, I don't. Shep's, just the Shep's. I've always looked at those sort of things and thought, yeah, gimmick. But hearing you talk now, yeah.
No, not gimmick. Not gimmick. Very useful.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful experience with CLA vocals, and I was like, a friend of mine was just sitting behind me while I was mixing a song. I was like, I got to mix this before I go. So I was like, hold on an hour. He's just like sitting on the couch, and I was beginning to do the thing with some backing vocals, a little bit of echo, a little bit of reverb, this and that. And he kept on just going like CLA or something. And finally I'm like, whatever. And I threw it on there, and it was like push, 3 fade. Oh crap. That was great. Done.
Yep.
So on that note, here's a quick story. So when we first introduced what we then called them at the time, the artist signature plugins, I remember turning up in Nashville with Eddie Kramer to do a masterclass, and then Eddie was coming on to do his part of the masterclass. But we were using, one of the things we did was Eddie and I created a song which we recorded from scratch, and then we mixed with just the artist signature plugins. And I remember that when I was looking out at the crowd that were waiting to see us, there were probably about 15 Grammy winners in the audience. And when I started talking about artist signature plugins, maybe 5 of them pretty much went, humph, and this is bullshit, and pretty much left. The reality is, nearly every single one of those guys, plus more, have at some point afterwards gone, you know what, in a pinch, when I need something that sounds good, but I need it right now because of either the budget is too low for this, for me to spend way more time on it, or I need an instant sound. The artist signatures are amazing for that.
It's the midpoint between the one knob and the full plugin.
The one knob series for me, I mean, the amount of times I'm in a pinch and I'll grab one knob louder, or one knob filter, or, one knob whatever, one knob brighter.
I use one knob brighter nearly every day.
One knob brighter is amazing. It's so good.
Paddle shift.
Yeah, it is so good. One knob brighter has about 10 different presets that you conk through in it, and the more it gets, the more you turn it up, the more intensity grows. So we actually up the compression, we adjust the compression and the limiting and the EQ. We change the EQ curves to adjust how far or low that knob is, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Slate Digital have one similar that I use called Fresh Air.
Fresh Air, the plugin where you go to the landing page. I actually looked at Fresh Air for the first time yesterday. I saw it as something that competitors were using. So I went and had a look at the video on the landing page for Fresh Air. And there's a guy who's clearly very talented at what he does, but he's talking into the microphone in his webcam, which seems like it's about 2 miles away from his face. So as soon as I hear that on a video, I'm like, I can't deal with this. I'm sorry. I didn't even get as far as him talking about the plugin. I got through, hi, I am this. Nope, not doing it. Give the guy a microphone.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Austrian Audio, ship him one out. Rode, ship him one.
Yeah, exactly.
I want the plugin that will make someone's home studio sound the way the client thinks raw audio is supposed to sound plugin.
Wait, so in other words, you want a plugin that changes every single minute of every single day based on their perception?
Yeah. But and Gomez, this is no bullshit. This is no bullshit. You know what I want? I actually want the client plugin that does absolutely nothing. Something that when the client goes, can you just do blah? I can go, yep, not a problem. I'll just open this up. This will do it perfectly. I'll open that up and I turn a dial or twist a couple of knobs and I go, see, and they go, yep, that's it. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I just need that.
Funk Logic.
Funk Logic did that.
In the hardware domain.
Yeah. Funk Logic had the Digilog Dynamicator, but they made plugins too.
Oh.
Call it the Fabricator BS or something, the bullshit Fabricator, or I don't know. Just it doesn't have to do anything. That's all I need. Just a couple of knobs to turn.
The studio I used to, when I was early in my career, I interned at, and there's this soul producer that would come in and make soul records, and the guy would always ask for like more sweat. I need more sweat in those vocals, or whatever it was. That was like his word that he would use to direct the talent. And so the studio techs one day made the pH modulator, and they put it in the rack for him. I was like, and this thing had like a dial that I think it was just working off of like, a mic, and it just had room noise and a couple of knobs on it and a turkey baster thing coming out the front of it. And it was the pH modulator.
Nice.
I can't count how many times, especially since I got to the States and started mixing musicians, I can't count how many A&R or record company people or producers have sat next to me and gone, no, it's not quite that. I need something else in that vocal. And I just tweak a knob that did absolutely nothing. And then you see them gazing wistfully into the sky, and then they go, yeah, that's it.
Oh, of course. Oh, fuck
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
or the fader that's not got anything on it.
Yeah, I had a client that would take me around in circles, And then we'd finally arrive like, oh yeah, that sounds great.
Which was the original.
I'm sure we were there 45 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly.
He would totally acknowledge that was probably the thing that we started with.
I had somebody, I had somebody come and ask for a demo. This is about 10 years ago at NAMM, the durometers that we have at Waves. A guy came up at the end of the show and said, "Can you demo the durometers to me?" I said, "Absolutely." So I put them on a session. I asked him what DAW he wanted, and he goes, "I don't really mind." So I opened Pro Tools. I put Duro on the main meters. I go through them, and he listens to my entire demo for a few minutes. It's not hard to demo a meter. And then he goes, "Can you bypass it?" And I bypassed it. And he goes, "Okay, unbypass it." And I was like very confused. And he goes, "I totally hear the difference." and it's one of those times where you can't shit can somebody.
No.
But you have to keep a really straight face and just nod, because it's way too complicated to explain that they didn't hear a thing. Because
it's just sitting there on a bus.
I did wonder if I was getting pranked, but yeah, no, I don't think I was.
This is Penn and Teller's bullshit show from way back when they would have a water sommelier at the restaurant in Beverly Hills.
Wow.
And they would fill all these bottles of water with a hose in the back and bring them out, and the water sommelier would tell the guests about the water, where it came from, how it was sourced. And they would sit there in all seriousness, taste these waters. It was the best thing ever.
It's, I swear, it's like the biggest lesson I learned as a kid was, if you don't know about something, say really clearly that you don't know about it, or just don't comment. Keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, we have ChatGPT for that.
Yeah.
If you want bullshit, just type it in the...
When I was an angry teenager, I fell out of love with my parents at, the age of 13 or 14 for a while there. The time I clearly remember the day or the evening, in fact, that I fell back in love with my father, because we had some friends of the family over, and my dad had bought a bottle of Grange because we hadn't seen them for a while. And through dinner, they managed to polish the bottle off, of course. And my dad's mate said to him, "That was really nice. Ha ha, have you got another one?" And my dad said, "Actually, yes, I do." And he picked up the empty bottle and walked out to the kitchen and came back and poured everyone else, a glass of wine from this new bottle of Grange. And afterwards, when we were cleaning up, my dad was chuckling to himself, and I said, "What's so funny?" And he said, "The second bottle of Grange, I actually just grabbed the cask of red out of the pantry and put it into the same bottle and took it back to the table."
I like your dad.
Yes. Well, I could tell you my father-in-law wouldn't even open the first one. He would just fill it up from the cupboard.
Yeah, right. So, yeah. Anyway, hey, listen, I've got to also know, Gomez, completely off the audio track, the last time we spoke to you, you were writing a book called The Fuck It Method. Was that right?
Yep. So I now have 2 books out. The Fuck It Method came out, and also The Fearless Speaker, which is a book for anybody who wants to learn how to present themselves better, public speaking or to camera or for live streams. So both those books are out, and the third book is coming out at the end of July, and that one's called The Fearless Artist. And that's around getting over imposter syndrome and actually putting your best self out there in the world, and
you've been busy,
not giving a shit about what anybody else thinks.
Aren't Waves paying you enough?
I just like helping people, and
good for you.
I do it in a slightly untraditional way, and I do it nearly a Mark Manson-y kind of writing way. I'm kind of blunt.
Yeah.
And then there's another book that I'm writing with a colleague of mine who's ex-senior product manager from Microsoft and Samsung. Him and I are writing a book as well together that we aim to get to the editors by the end of September.
Wow.
And
where do they hear about all this stuff? What's the site?
My site is michaelpa.com, MICHAEL, and then P for Pearson and A for Adams.com.
You need to change that to Gomez.com. Seriously.
And then, and then you've also got ohforfucksakebooks.com. So OHFFS books.com. There's that one as well. So yeah.
You must be saving a fortune on replacing your mattress.
Why?
Because quite obviously you never sleep.
Oh, hey, Andrew, that's a good one, man. I actually don't sleep very much, and I have a serious case of insomnia. So one of the things that's happened with the books, especially with the Fuck It method, is it started to get a bit of a following of people going through some of the guidance. So I've started a coaching company on the side because I was bored, called the Fearless Pathways, and that's all based around helping people share their stories and share their experiences so that people can actually learn and gain confidence off each other. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, make sure you fix the link to Amazon on the front page of ohffsbooks.com.
Oh, you mean actually make it go to something now? It seems to be dead completely. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna buy it for my daughter.
Beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, she's 14, and I think she's right at that age where she needs to get through being afraid of taking chances and trying new things. And
man, I'll tell you, one of the things that I talk about in the book is, and basically, guys, it actually starts with a radio conversation at the beginning of the book and at the end of the book, because that's kind of where I started to say, fuck it, what's the worst that could happen? I use paper plates. When I'm making goals, I use small appetizer plates and the entree plates, and then main paper plates, and I write a goal on them and then put smaller plates with smaller goals that make to that goal, and they all have a date next to them. And I stick them on my wall, and I still do it now. I'm staring at plates on my wall, and 3 of them are crossed out on my current goal, and then there's the big one that says at the end of this year. So, but paper plates, you can actually see and you can adjust things, and you see your goals every single day, but you can adjust and you can move them where you want them. So, blue tack and paper plates is just it's prehistoric, it's simple, but it's so powerful because it's right in your face every day.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea.
well, we got to let each other go, huh?
Yes.
Indeed.
I hate to say it.
Let it go.
I know.
Let it go.
So, Gomez, thanks for joining us today, and good luck with the books.
Nice to be back on the right side of the world.
Yes, it is.
We'll come see us.
Everybody else on the other side, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's Robert and George. You got to come stay.
Indeed.
Well,
Come visit.
I'm afraid of all the blood rushing to my head.
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite, with thanks to TriBooth and Austrian Audio. Recorded using Source Connect. Edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Voodoo Radio Imaging, with tech support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website, theproaudiosuite.com.